Good morning from Seattle. Good afternoon to the rest of the country. A little bit late this morning. I was out taking pictures of street art around Seattle that's up over the boarded windows of our shops, stores, taverns, bars, bakeries, and whatnot. The rest of the country might be opening up, but as far as Seattle proper and King County, it's very much a closed environment. We're seeing cars drive around. Not sure where they're all going because the offices are all closed, stores are boarded up, even the largest in the community, and none of the business and corporations are owned, leading with the tech companies, which basically led us to social distancing long before the state jumped in. So I was out taking pictures of street art, and I'll put them up on Facebook and other places, and maybe we'll incorporate them into the Blog for Good campaign that we're working with bar associations and lawyers on around the country. Today we're talking about categories on a blog, and categories used to be a big thing. When blogs started, or at least LexBlog started doing blogs back at the end of 2003, which, wow, 17 years ago, which in internet time is like 50 or 60 years ago. We use categories for different reasons. One was because it was an easy way to use the infrastructure on something called movable type, which before WordPress was more popular, and WordPress was just coming up, but pretty rudimentary. People like me use it would be pretty tough. It's obviously won out and the most popular now. But we could use the tagging structure to do certain things with categories that we call promotional categories. What were promotional categories? They were about the lawyer, the services that they offered, their contact information. So we called those promo categories in a blog. And traditionally those ran horizontal across the top or across the bar someplace. And then you had substantive categories, as we called them. And we were just making it up as we go, but everybody followed us. And substantive categories were a breakdown, almost like a table of contents in a book. So that if you were blogging on workers' compensation, you might have permanent partial disability, temporary total disability. You might have other things as far as insurance coverage and whatnot. So you'd have all posts that related to that category, if you will, go into that category folder. That way, if you clicked on it, you could find those posts. Another thing that could be done back then was, a lot of this was new. Creating individual pages to be indexed on Google was quite extraordinary. And at one point in time, Google had a blog search, and there was concern that they may not even index blogs on Google. Imagine that. That's what I was thinking. My God, what if I'm building a company that was going to be irrelevant because Google wasn't going to index all this content on its general search engines? But what we could do with those category pages, we could drop in certain information that would cause it to appear in the search engines, that category of information. So, things have evolved over time. But what you started with, just to draw it up for you as to, and you're still seeing a lot of it today in some form, shape, or another. You have the blog. You have your promo categories, about, who is this lawyer? What do they do? Their services? How do I get a hold of them? And this information was up here, not so much for, advertising or marketing, which the lawyers think it is. It was to provide credibility. So if I'm reading this information here, if I've come into a post that you've written as a consumer, business person, anybody, who wrote this thing? Was it somebody in their basement that doesn't even have a law degree? Was it a lawyer that doesn't even have an office? Which may not be that unusual now, but it certainly was. Oh, it is, she's got her law degree from a university that I recognize. She's been practicing law and family law for 19 years. She's been helping women in domestic abuse issues. She's on a charitable board for a domestic abuse foundation. Well, she's writing about domestic abuse issues and family law issues pertinent to women. That's a lot of street cred because that category was right up there. What does she do? Oh, she actually represents people in these situations too. She's not just writing about it. Anybody can write about it. I mean, you can hire a marketing company that can write this content without a law degree. They do it and they sell it, and it's kind of a fraud on the public. But lawyers buy it and the people will take their money. But this person actually does this work. So this category represents, this is even more credible. They have an office. So they must be somewhat successful. They actually can afford to have an office. So I looked at these things as being pretty important for purpose of demonstrating authenticity, capability, trustworthiness. So it wasn't so much promo categories and, beating my chest that I'm really good, you should call me, which is kind of the way of the world for SEO. Here's the 800 number, here's the chat window, you can talk with us all day long. It's a possible way to market, but most of the lawyers that blog are trying to grow their influence and build word of mouth reputations. And then your substantive categories are coming down the side. So that might be, if I'm a family law lawyer, maybe it's about divorce, maybe it's about visitation, maybe it's about custody, maybe it's about property settlement, that type of thing. Now the problem that lawyers got into, especially lawyers in practice groups, everybody has an opinion as to what to call a category. So they go in and they draft a post, and there's a little thing that says check a category in the back end, except they add a new one, always a new one. And then what happens is these categories start to go like this, and then you have similar titles, but it's just a mess. It's an absolute mess. And I was a partner in a law firm. I could easily see my partner saying, well, I like the name of this category. Well, don't you think it's kind of stupid that we have 18 categories now that nobody can even navigate? Yeah, I know, but I like the name of this category. I'm going to use this category. So what happens is it becomes worthless other than somebody's ego going down the side. If you're going to have substantive categories, what you're going to want to do is agree on them in advance. What are the things that are going to go in here? And have them go in there. If it doesn't fit in perfect, that's okay. Most people are not navigating your categories. Most blogs today don't have categories. If you look around to the really popular blogs on the internet, people are coming to a post. They're coming to an article. They're not necessarily coming to categories. Now, categories can be worthwhile, for other reasons. They can be valuable for lawyers in the firm. Now, the search is probably a better way to find things, but smart lawyers that don't put their ego first and put their clients first and put actually business development in front of ego are going to realize the gold that they have in blogs in their firm. So if I'm a lawyer at Shepherd Mullen or a lawyer at Fox Rothschild, and I've got 100 and some lawyers, very good lawyers, publishing insight and commentary on a myriad of issues. And I can easily get to that insight and commentary by just doing a quick search into a database of all that content. I mean, Shepherd Mullen now has they've done it for both the pandemic, so they have all the virus content in one place, and then they have all of their other content in one place in a separate publication. So Shepherd Mullen has all that information stored right here in a platform that's constantly being refreshed as far as technology and features. So what do their lawyers do with that? They run that search, and if a client had a question, they can send out a piece from their partner, which is much more impressive than sending out a piece from another law firm or something generic that came from anywhere. So if they can find it, that becomes pretty important. So if you're in the same practice group and I can find inside the category a particular piece, that's worthwhile. But once you have 500 pieces in that category or 200 pieces in that category, search might even be a better way to find it, than the categories. To clients and prospective clients, it's the same thing. Do they find value by navigating into those categories? So are they finding that they can get in there and find things by a particular category? I don't know. They might be better off to do it by search than trying to navigate the category. But it can make an impact as to the depth and breadth of information that somebody is writing on that subject. So what you can have is somebody browsing the particular blog and then opening it up a category and seeing this particular firm or this particular lawyer has really written in depth over the last 3 or 4 years. I mean, I've been publishing a blog since 2003. There's probably 10,000 posts in there. There's lawyers that have comparable amounts of posts. I mean, you add it up and it adds up. You blog, even if you're blogging, twice a week, you're talking 104. You do it for 10 years, you got over 1,000 posts. So anybody that wants to come in and see the depth and breadth of what you've written on a particular category can see it. I mean, if somebody wants to see who knows the judicial tendencies of the judges on IP litigation issues in the circuit court or the district courts in Chicago, federal courts, it's Dave Donahue, because he's blogged it all and he's been covering it all. Nobody has that depth that's easily there. And so he has the ability to actually call, in-house counsel that have just filed in New York, and they might be in Silicon Valley, they might be anywhere, and call them up and say, just want to introduce myself. I don't know if you know who I am. If you need any resources, and I would also welcome being, your local representative. I know the judicial tendencies of the judges here better than anybody, no question about it. And he can demonstrate it by just going to his blog. So that becomes very powerful when you're skimming through the categories. The last one is the SEO. Now, I explained yesterday, that maybe I should invite some people on here that are much more SEO experts than I am, and there's a litany of them out there. Some like me, some hate me. Nothing wrong with SEO. Your content's got to be indexed. It should appear on the search engines. We're just reviewing, and we'll put up some information shortly as to how we're going to change out what we're doing, some things on the actual platform that will impact all the blogs. And, that came from Gita Sakis in Chicago at Attorney Sync, great firm. Good information, basic information as far as indexing that we could be taking into account. At one time we actually took those categories, like I mentioned before, and actually put into the title tag, it was through movable type then, as opposed to something like Yoast on WordPress today, what was the title tag going to appear for this category? So by the time we got done with the promo categories, let's say 3 or 4, the name of the lawyer, what they do, their services, the contact information, we could put various things, so we could put, divorce in Naperville, Illinois. You put all this stuff into these tags for each one of these categories, and the more categories we could get, 4 promo categories, we got 8 over here, we got 12, we got the original title tag for the main page. We got a lot in play, as far as what we're indexing. Well, Google's got a lot more sophisticated is what it's going to let you game around with. So I don't know that the categories are the be-all and end-all for SEO. I do know that one of the things you want to take into account is be thinking about duplicit content. People get concerned about that. Some firms have decided duplicit content doesn't worry them. They're willing to take their content, give it to another party, and let that party index their content for Google, which means their blog probably isn't going to rank well, or if at all. And that's okay. They just want it up in lights anywhere. Most firms and most lawyers want to get credit for their content when it's indexed on Google. Think of it as a giant card catalog. And in that case, they want to do things where there's not duplicit content. Duplicit content can be, well, gee, I have a category page on my blog that has full text of all the posts that I've written. Plus I've got each individual post page that has all of that. And then on the front page, I've got the most recent 10 posts that has all of that. And I got some tags that has full pages. So you got Google and it's indexing it all. It's grabbing it all. And what it sees you doing is putting up duplicit content. And that's not highly favored by Google. Now I'm sure there's people much smarter on this issue than I am. But one of the things we were just talking about internally this week, because I raised some issues vis-a-vis my blog, I don't get my work from people coming to the blog, clicking the links, and contacting Lexblog. Usually people are contacting Lexblog because they've heard of us and our reputation, people refer to us. It's just a strong word of mouth that we have in the industry. But at the same time, I want to be able to find my content. So if I want to be able to find 45 chapters in legal blogging so I can pull this up every morning, boom, it better come up. And I don't want to have to use the exact title. Well, I was starting to notice some things may have been off a little bit. And at the same time that I was noticing that, my team was already discussing certain things that they were thinking about changing across the whole platform. One of which was, maybe we shouldn't be indexing the category pages. Maybe that's creating duplicit content. Maybe we should not be indexing in entirety, the posts in search, which we don't anymore. So we're working on those type of things. So I think if you're running a blog, you as a lawyer, and you're trying to run it yourself, you're going to run into issues. And I don't mean, you can key up information, you have to do that on your own, but you're probably going to run into issues if you're trying to do it on your own as far as doing this or doing that, and sometimes doing what other people are telling you to do or what you think you need to do. You're better off to have somebody on a platform and running it in some professional way, and then also thinking about what are your goals. So if it's when you get into something like this, I'm getting a little bit off track here, but I think it's important. If your goal is to be closer to, I've got to replace yellow page ads, I've got to replace ads on the sides of buses, I've got to replace ads on the top of billboards, I need to get people from a certain zip code calling my office X times a day or filling out this chat window on the front of the site, then that's a little bit different. Then you've got to do everything you can for that search engine optimization. And maybe some of the things that I'm talking about here to build influence, word of mouth, have your blog cited, grow your reputation as a lawyer, both in front of lawyers, the public, the judiciary, those type of things, that's different. So there can be different ways to look at these things depending on what your goals are. And people, I've come to learn over time that people focus on tactics before they even think of the goal. They don't think about why am I doing this. They think about I need to do this. And I can be guilty of that. So I can look at some of our work and say, do this, we need to do that. And then somebody goes off and does something, and I might be saying, what was our really goal to do that? So how can we even judge the success? So something as simple as categories, you might want to be thinking about, what's my goal for this blog? What am I trying to achieve? Is this something that I want to get into? I let categories go. Why did I let categories go on my blog? Because I think it didn't look very professional anymore. I'm looking for the trend of what I saw out there, and I just didn't see it out there among leading bloggers in the world. And I wasn't just looking at law. And I think one of the things you need to do when you're looking at your blog and deciding what you do, don't look at lawyers, please. Because what's happening is you get a lot of bad information coming from experts that people follow, and then you follow them. And then you're also following lawyers, which are not very innovative in the way that they do business. It's just a fact of life. It's just true. So when I started my own firm and broke out of another firm, it wasn't because I was following other lawyers. It was because I went out to Barnes & Noble and started reading business books and started realizing this is exciting, this is innovative. I can look at the world differently. Jack Newton just spoke on that, I think, in the last day or so with somebody. Wonderful opportunity for lawyers to do things, just don't do what other lawyers are doing. So take a look at what other blogs are out there. Because if you're going to become a blogger, then be a blogger. Look at what other bloggers do. Don't look at, well, gee, here's a blog and a website. That's dumb. Don't look at what necessarily other lawyers do. It may be good, bad, or indifferent, but it isn't what people are looking at. When you look at what lawyers are looking at, you're looking at how they're looking at each other. The public doesn't look at and feel trust necessarily in what lawyers think is the right way to do things. The public develops trust based on all types of other things. So what is the blog that they're reading regarding dating? What is the blog that they're reading regarding home improvements? What is the blog that they're reading on family trips? Those type of things. What does it look like? It could be anything. That's the type of thing to be looked at. What do the technology blogs look like that are out there, that are good blogs that people are following, not necessarily right in their website? So as you take a look at the categories thing, I would not get wigged out about it. It's nothing to get wigged out about it. If you need it just to have that table of contents on the side for organizing information, great. Don't have more than about 8 categories. Keep it very, very small. You don't need to have a lot. Think about what your goals are for it, and make people stick to it. If it's a multiple blog, don't let people continue to add on it. It will make you look lame, and lame is not good. So think about these things as you're going to do chapters. I hope you guys all have a great weekend. On Monday, we'll talk about tags, which lawyers have done an awful lot of, whether that's still whether it's still a good idea to use them, what's the benefit, maybe you should stop using them. Thanks much. Have a good day.